regions and cities. And it's a real pleasure to welcome you all today to this timely discussion on leveraging defence investments for regional development and local jobs. Now, the timely nature of the event is, of course, no coincidence. It's a direct response on our side to the increased commitments that we're seeing across the globe to defence expenditure, which, of course, is in itself a response to rising geopolitical tensions. And I guess to put that increase in expenditure into some perspective, global defence expenditure reached a record high in 2024, and and we can see, for example, this is set to increase, certainly given the commitments countries are making to increase defence expenditure as a share of GDP over the next many years. Now, most OECD countries are indeed committing to spend at least 2% of GDP on defence, and many indeed are going well beyond that. Now, given the significant commitments, and not least, I guess, given the tight fiscal environment that many countries continue to face, it's imperative that countries look to fully leverage the potential of defence expenditures to drive sustainable economic growth and, of course, quality job creation. And because defence spending is highly spatial, often reflecting regional industrial ecosystems and innovation networks, the potential to create synergies with regional development policies, and of course the growing emphasis on place-based industrial policies, is huge. The key question, and this is one of the questions that we're going to be looking at today, is how? Now, a starting point is looking at skills and workforce development. Defence industries are highly technology intensive, and they often generate innovation spillovers into civilian sectors through dual use technologies in areas that increasingly rely on advanced manufacturing, digital engineering, cybersecurity, AI, to name but a few. And for defence firms, whether they're established or the new entrants, the availability of a skilled workforce is one of the most decisive factors when choosing where to invest or indeed expand production. Now, this underscores the real importance of strong local skill systems that allow workers to retrain, upskill, and transition into emerging opportunities. Now, leveraging those broader regional ecosystems, and especially upstream SMEs and research institutions within those ecosystems is also really important. Regions with strengths in manufacturing, advanced materials, electronics, robotics, digital technologies are well placed to support the defence industry, including through building new capabilities that leverage on historic strengths. But we shouldn't forget, of course, that ecosystems are not just about the actors. The enabling infrastructure, the power grids, the transport, logistic networks, the digital infrastructure, the factory-ready industrial land, they also need to be right. Coordinating those investments across levels of governments, therefore, will also be really crucial. Leveling playing fields will also be really important, particularly for SMEs, because whilst they already play a significant role in defence supply chains, many still face disproportionate barriers to entry, including complex procurement, regulatory requirements, and financing constraints. Now, at the OECD's Centre for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities, through our committees on local employment and economic development, regional development policy, and SMEs and entrepreneurship, we're already working to help national and subnational policymakers meet these needs. We have, for example, recently completed a study to drive synergies in defence and regional development strategies through investments along the EU's eastern border, working directly with regions in Latvia and Finland. And the discussion that we're having today is another huge step forward, I think, in advancing on that agenda. It's going to allow us to draw on international experiences and, of course, regional perspectives to explore how regions can repurpose industrial heritage and strengthen local skills and regional ecosystems, mobilize SMEs, build the infrastructure needed to support firms in order to benefit from defence-related investments. Now, we'll continue this conversation at our OECD Global Forum on Local Development, which is taking place this May in Maastricht, and we're planning to have a side event there, and I certainly welcome you all to register and join us at that event. And with that, it's now my great pleasure to introduce Stefan Satijn, the Regional Minister for Economy, Finance and Business Operations and Public Affairs in the Province of Limburg, who's going to share his important perspective on this topic. So thank you, Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Nadine, for the kind introduction, and a warm welcome to everyone. And it's an honor for me to speak to you on behalf of the Province of Limburg. And thank you also for joining us from across Europe and beyond. And our topic today could not be more relevant: leveraging defense investments for regional development, as Nadine explained to you. And let me take you back in time. Limburg, the province of Limburg, located in the heart of Europe, shares borders with both our neighbors, Belgium and Germany. And for decades, during the Cold War, our region was a vital link in Europe's defense. The NATO network spanned all over our province. And in the Joint Operations Center in the Kannerberg in Maastricht, the military worked for years in secret, deep underground to guard our continent, to make and feel us safe. But then, of course, the Berlin Wall fell and the world changed. The old tunnels found a new purpose, no longer for military use, but for sightseeing, entertainment, but also as a museum to learn about history. Because Limburg learned an important lesson. Security is never a static force, and it demands adaptation, constant learning, and above all, working together. Today, as Nadim already explained to you, the world faces new threats. They are complex and very unpredictable. And the Dutch government is investing significantly in defense. They call on regions like our own, the Province of Limburg, and call for action, creativity, and strong partnerships and entrepreneurship. And as a province, we accept that challenge. Limburg aims to be a key partner for security and resilience, locally, nationally, and for all of Europe. Limburg is home to major operational NATO headquarters, such as the Allied Joint Force Command in Brunssum, which secures the northern part of Europe. How do we do this? Our approach is broad and it's forward-looking. We unite industry, knowledge, and policy. We believe in strong public-private partnerships. Our businesses, large and small, are leaders in high-tech manufacturing. They work with precision technology and innovative materials, cutting-edge IT, and smart logistics. Often their work is dual use. It serves both the civilian side as well does it serve the military needs. And our 4 Brightland campuses are hotspots for innovation. And here we push the boundaries of material science, artificial intelligence, health, and green chemistry. Education is for our province crucial. Our universities and strong technical schools keep our workforce skilled and resilient now and in the future. We link education directly to business and to defense. And Limburg is home to major operational NATO headquarters. And every day we work closely with our Belgian and German neighbors. We share knowledge, ambition, and luckily also prosperity across the borders. And we know defense investments bring more than security. They boost innovation, create top jobs, and build strong communities. And our recent agreements and treaties with the Dutch Ministry of Defense do just that. They support our local businesses, our startups, our research, and our education. Projects like VDL and Born, aiming to be flagship for European defense industry cooperation, show what's possible. And a new mine base on our Brightland Camelot campus is another example. It's a hub where entrepreneurs can present innovative ideas for smart materials for defense that are also used for society and civilian purposes. Let's use defense investment to help our regions move forward. Let's face our challenges together and build strong partnerships for the future. And I all warmly invite you to the OECD Forum on Local Development held in Maastricht, as said by Nadim, on May 27th and 28th, right here in Maastricht, and join us for that debate. Explore how global security needs connect to local opportunities, create jobs, build skills, and encourage entrepreneurship. Please visit Limburg and see firsthand what regional innovation means. And together, let's build a resilient, secure, and prosperous future to us all. Thank you so much.
Super. Many thanks, Minister. I'm going to ask the team perhaps to put out. Oh, you've done it already. The next edition of the link is now on the chat, so you can have a look at it. You can register there. And thank you also for the fantastic intervention you made, Minister. I particularly like the reference to knowledge sharing on the ground, as you've already experienced it with your neighbours. But I think that today is also another illustration of the importance of that knowledge sharing, and I genuinely hope and certainly expect, I think, with a great degree of optimism, that knowledge sharing is certainly going to advance an awful lot of our work in the run up to Maastricht and, of course, beyond. And now I'm going to go straight into the substantive parts of this discussion. I'm going to hand over to Lucia Cosmano, who's going to be the moderator for the panel that's about to take place. So Lucia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nadim, and thanks a lot to the Minister Satijn that already, I think, provided us insights from a very relevant example, that of Limburg, of how the increase, in fact, in defense spending can be viewed beyond question of security, but with an ecosystem perspective, where building a strong innovation entrepreneurial ecosystem is part of making the most of this type of spending, nurturing local opportunities for business, for knowledge sharing, innovation, through the engagement of research institution, training institution. I think the minister also mentioned the question of skills. So all these are elements that I think are already excellent for our discussion, but we have the opportunity today in the panel, in fact, to learn and to discuss about other relevant experiences, in particular across Europe. So I'm very pleased to introduce the panelists of today that will give us a glimpse of how the question of relating defense industry with local opportunities is playing out in the region, or the perspective also from the central government about a place-based approach to the question. So I would like to welcome to the panel Andy Sams, Assistant Head of Industrial Policy at the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom. Thank you, Andy, for joining us. Daniel Janeiro, who is the coordinator of the External Relations Department at Alentejo Development Agency in Portugal, as well as Vice President of the European Association of Development Agencies, EURADA, therefore can also provide us a perspective from regional development agencies. And then last but not least, Hélène Morin, who is head of EU Affairs Department at Bretagne Next, so another important regional experience in France. I would like to start, Andy, if you can therefore walk us through your perspective with regard to how defense spending can become an opportunity for local regional development. Thank you.
Great, Lucia, thank you so much, and thank you for those excellent kind of introduction comments from Nadine and Stefan. And firstly, just a thank you on behalf of the UK MOD for being invited to this session with the OECD today. Over the next kind of 7 or so minutes, I'll just try and step through what we are doing in the UK government to support industrial skill base, and what we are also doing across the UK to support kind of regional development and its links to the defence sector. Next slide, please. A lot of the UK's thinking has been generated through the two kind of key strategic documents that were published last year. Firstly, the Strategic Defence Review, which talked about how the UK, alongside its allies and partners, could prepare for a more volatile and competitive and indeed in many places difficult world environment. And following that, the publication of the UK's defence industrial strategy, alongside a kind of broad range of industrial strategies, which seek to kind of ensure that the defence sector both is able to respond to the growing requirements that has been placed on it through the Strategic Defence Review, and ensure that defence, as already kind of commented on, is an engine for growth. And the aim really, and certainly from a kind of ministerial perspective, is to think about the industrial sector as part of that total defence ecosystem, not just the armed forces and the civilians that support defence outputs, but the importance of the industrial base. And also thinking about the industrial base as much broader than manufacturers, but those in academia, in the supply chain, in our education system. All of this is underpinned by, as has already been mentioned by Nadine, a growing amount of of public spending into defence. In the UK, defence spending will grow to 2.6% of GDP by next year, and with the ambition for that to grow to 3% in the next Parliament. And our investments through the Defence Industrial Strategy include £182 million supporting skills in the industrial base and in the UK education system, and the introduction of 5 defence growth deals across the UK, where we've set aside £250 million to support that. Next slide, please. Our work on the skills base in the defence sector is informed by a number of things, challenges and a number of opportunities. So firstly, as mentioned previously, with defence spending growing, we do expect the requirement for a skilled workforce to grow between now and the middle 2030s. Analysis that we've done with other parts of the UK government have shown that we think that there will be an additional 50,000 roles across the UK by between now and the 2030s to support both that growing sector and those technological changes. And many of those roles are split often between things like different types of engineering disciplines, craft-related skills that sometimes get forgotten, but things like welding, pipe fitting, more kind of manufacturing-based skills, and increasingly IT and computer science roles. And we find that most of the provision of that skill set in the UK is in kind of technical and further education, as well as the important role that higher education plays in delivering the skills that the sector will need moving forward. We also saw in the UK a number of challenges, particularly around provision of science, technology, engineering and maths throughout our education system, and the vital importance of being STEM literate for a career in the defence sector. Challenges in mid-careers, so how do we upskill our existing workforce, and how do we attract people from other sectors of the economy into the defence sector and give them the skills boost that they need. Challenges further down the supply chain. We understand that large defence primes, be it in the UK, but I'm sure across OECD members, often are able to attract graduates and apprentices into their early career programs. But our understanding is that as you go down the supply chain, that challenge definitely becomes more difficult. And I think the final challenge that we have found in the UK is that kind of view about a reputation of a career in the defence sector, and how can we work with educational institutions and young people and their kind of influences to ensure that people consider a career in the defence sector as a great opportunity to have a rewarding and well-paid career, as well as contributing to national security. Next slide, please. And our sort of interventions in the UK are trying to look across all those different challenges and across that pipeline of learners. One that sits across it all is that reputation piece, which I talked about. So we are running a campaign to encourage people to think about careers in the defence sector. But we're also working at a regional level with schools to encourage them to support STEM careers, STEM jobs, and also to think about how defence companies could work with schools, both at an earlier and later stage, to encourage young people to think about careers in the defence sector. We're also working with the UK's university college admission system to make sure that when people go to into higher education in particular, that they're thinking about the types of skills they might need and the types of roles that there are in defence. So we're working closely with UCAS on that. Then we've got a suite of interventions around further and higher education. Things that we've announced so far is the establishment of 5 Defence Technical Excellence Colleges. These will really focus on some of those key technical skills that I spoke about earlier. They will be regionally based, but they will have a kind of a regional hub presence, but also linked to other parts of the UK, other parts of England, sorry. And they will be kind of technical, have kind of technical excellence in particular disciplines, be it in maritime or air, for instance. And we're also working with larger companies to see if we can introduce a clearing system that helps take individuals who may have narrowly missed out on a role in a larger prime to make sure that they can stay within the defence sector, supporting those in the supply chain. And we're doing a number of things to support our relationship with the UK's higher education sector. One of those is investing through the Strategic Priority Grant to grow capacity in high cost defence-related subjects like engineering and computer science and apprenticeships, and establishing the Defence Universities Alliance to have a strategic network of universities across the UK that support defence, support careers in the defence sector, and are willing to work with the MOD in the defence sector to support research as well. So they're the things we're doing in further and higher education. And we're also thinking about that mid-career point. How can we make it easier for people to move across different parts of the defence enterprise, be it the armed forces, the civilian workforce, and into industry through a defence skills passport, and to make it easier for people from adjacent sectors, adjacent parts of the economy to move into defence. And we're also doing some work to introduce apprenticeship units, which will be kind of short courses to upskill our existing workforce, for instance, in things like cyber and IT-related disciplines. Alongside that, maybe we'll jump to the next slide, please. Alongside those skills announcements, we have announced that we will have 5 defence growth deals across the UK, 1 in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and then 1 in Plymouth and 1 in South Yorkshire around Sheffield. These will kind of build on existing strengths and build on kind of previous work that we've done in places like Barrow, which is the sort of home of UK submarine manufacture. These will work with devolved governments and local councils and bodies, with industry, with academia, to think about how we might grow the defence ecosystem in those places, think about certain interventions that will support innovation, support the supply chain, and support the education system in those places, which aim to attract private investment. And we've already announced our Wales Defence Growth Deal, which included the creation of a Defence Technical Excellence College and harnessing some of the existing industrial ecosystem there around unmanned air vehicles and testing. Final slide, please. I just wanted to talk on how we do this kind of collaboratively. I think probably want to stress that doing this across government departments, local communities, and also with industry is really important. So we have established something called the Defence Industries Joint Council at a very senior level that is chaired by the Minister for Defence Readiness and Industry and Chief Executive of some of our largest primes. But there is a senior level skills and training working group that is led by the Chief Executive of Thales UK and the MOD's Director General People, to bring together industry and government to make sure that we are kind of working collectively and collaboratively on the skills package, to ensure that we're investing in the right places, to ensure that delivery is coordinated, and to make sure that we're thinking ahead to the key challenges and opportunities that the sector faces. Thanks very much, Lucy. I was going to hand back to you after that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. You brought us extremely interesting elements, I think, in relation with the current strategy in the UK, but I could see in the chat also how they echoed with some of the participants' attendance to the webinar. For example, the question of what type of skills, is it STEM, but what about other type of non-cognitive skills? I think we can pick up some of these points also later on. But overall, I think also you gave us a very clear view on the need for a rather broad perspective when we talk about the industrial base, the military base. This is much more than a simple provider of the final goods, as high tech as they may be. It's a question of the supply chain. It's a question of the local labor market. It's a question of the local training and education system that is well aligned, where career pathways are built, they are disseminated. So I think we already have very interesting insights for our discussion. I would like now to ask Danielle, who's coming from a different perspective, not only in terms of country, Portugal, and region Alentejo, but also in terms of role, as Danielle is a coordinator of external relations in the Alentejo Regional Development Agency. Danielle, please.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfectly. So good morning or afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the OECD for this very kind invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here today. So my name is Daniel Janeiro, and as you mentioned, I have the privilege of speaking on behalf of two entities. In one hand, I am the coordinator of external relations in ADRAL, the Regional Development Agency of Alentejo in Portugal. And on the other hand, I'm here also as Vice President of EURADA, representing the broader perspective of regional development agencies. So in my presentation, I will try to bridge these two perspectives in which I will share the macro vision of how European regions must adapt to new realities. And I also wanted to show you exactly what we are doing in the ground on the Alentejo region. So to understand our approach, we must first look at the broader picture, because unfortunately the geopolitical reality in Europe has changed dramatically. And an example of this is the war in Ukraine and the strong push for this European reindustrialization, which means that the defense is no longer just a matter of national sovereignty, managed strictly by the capitals. And today, it represents a critical economic and technological opportunity. And so this brings me to the role of smart specialization strategies, or S3, as everybody knows the name. And as EURADA, the European Association of Regional Development Agencies, strongly highlighted last year in a position paper, if regions want to integrate into this new European value chain, their S3 governance must be flexible, place-based, and most important, decentralized, because top models are simply too slow to respond to these global shocks that have been happening. And pushing now to my regional part, the regional development agencies are on the front line to identify these shifts and must lead these adaptation processes on the ground. So changing to the regional perspective, we in the region, in Alentejo, we are putting this flexibility into practice. So we at ADRAL, we proactively proposed a new strategic axis for our regional strategy, which is the area to 2030. And this strategic axis is explicitly focused on defense, space, aeronautics, and dual-use technologies. Because we realized that our region's digital competencies could not be limited to sectors like gaming, for example. So transversal technologies such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, augmented reality, and complex environment simulation, they must be heavily directed toward critical applications. So the dual use approach, which we know serves both civil and military purposes, we think it's the key, because it allows our regional companies to develop highly technological products. It helps to scale their businesses and diversify their markets with lower risk, while fully contributing to European security. But it's also important to say that this strategy is not only theory, because it's already happening on the ground through a strong collaboration across Alentejo region. And giving here some examples, I'll talk about some companies, for example, TechEver, which is an European reference in developing drones and autonomous systems, proving our integration into advanced value chains. Also in logistics, the port of Sines, which we can see on the slide, it's developing a new dual-use cargo terminal, which is financed by the CEF MILMOP program. And also on the security domain, we can highlight also the port cyber arena, also in Sines, which is an infrastructure focused on the simulation and protection of critical assets. So these are some examples, but it's important also to say that our ecosystem is not just about high-tech companies. I say this because besides changing our regional strategy, the array, we are already on the ground mapping our traditional industries, such as canning, footwear, textile, and metalworking sectors. And we are currently visiting, the agency, ADRAL, we are visiting these companies to understand their interest in developing military or dual-use production line. And also to help them identify exactly what support and resources they will need to make that transition. And finally, to answer the core question of this webinar, how do we skill the workforce for this new reality? And the answer again lies in transversal training. We are not just training people to work in the weapons industry. We believe that by focusing on dual use, we are training engineers, advanced logistics technicians, cybersecurity experts, so who can work just as easily in civil protection or commercial aeronautics as they can in defense. And we strongly believe that this approach attracts talent, retains our youth, which is a challenge for the Alentejo region, and it builds true European technological sovereignty. But I also, to conclude, I also want to leave you with a real concern that we have on the ground. We fear that the resources and funds now being made available might be entirely absorbed by pure and hard armament companies. But let me be clear, we are not against attracting foreign direct investment in the military sector. But for us, however, the possibility of innovation and funding, it also must be safeguarded for established traditional companies, ensuring that they are not left behind in this new use paradigm. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and obviously I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I noted on your last point also a link with what Nanim was mentioning earlier. The level playing field is a level playing field that concern also the way the funding is somehow directed. So ensuring that the industrial policy that are focusing on the defense industry, they are somehow inclusive or aware of the capabilities, the need of the established local industries that is in this process of repurposing, of reorienting, but that is also made up of players that are very different from the very large and high-tech multinational companies that, like the local supply chain, often made of small businesses. And I appreciated also all your the different perspective that you gave on this issue of bridging the gap between the traditional industry and high tech. So how to enable a transition in terms of workforce skills. It's a question of also how upskilling and reskilling a workforce that exists in the local labor market. And relatedly, the dual use technology. So what you mentioned, I think, was very interesting, that in order to understand the dual use potential, you need to do a mapping of the local capacities, the local needs, and also consider this potential when related to more traditional industries and small businesses in these traditional industries. So how to ensure that this potential is really exploited for an upgrading of the entire local entrepreneurial ecosystem. Thanks a lot, Daniel. I would like to call on Hélène that will be illustrating the case of Bretagne next, and the experience of in France of Bretagne. Yes.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to apologize. My camera is broken, so I cannot turn it on. Thank you all for inviting me to present the case of Brittany and what we are doing in the frame of the defense sector. I will share my presentation. Can you see it correctly? Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So my presentation will be divided into two parts. The first one will focus on the methodology that we are using to have a broad understanding of what the competencies are at the regional level, just to make you understand how we are working and what kind of information we collect in the frame of the Regional Development Agency. And the second part will be dedicated to the defense sector and an explanation of what we are doing currently for this specific sector. So just maybe a reminder where Bretagne is. It is on the western part of France, up north, and we have around 3.5 million inhabitants, and we are surrounded mostly by the sea. And for those who have already visited, we are near to the Mont Saint-Michel. Just to give you an overview. In the frame of the agency, we are collecting information about the economic sector at the regional level, and we are using a platform to store and also update all the information we have at the regional level, but not only at the regional level, also at national and European level. So the name of the platform is CRAFT, and there are three different steps in using this platform. First of all, what is at the heart of the platform is the data regarding companies, but not only companies, also labs, training organizations, local authority, etc. So we have a very broad overview of the sector we are analyzing. And we know the competencies. So it is really important for us to use this term as it is a way of creating value chain and knowing what the company and also labs manage instead of the current market. So the idea is really to see how we can use competencies for now, but also for the coming needs and for the future technologies. So this is really the way of we are thinking. It's in terms of value chain. And how we collect this information, we are doing it through a collaboration way. So it means that we are working with all the different stakeholders at the regional level. So that means universities, agencies, all the technopoles, Chamber of Commerce, the different chambers. And what we are doing, so we are contacting the different stakeholders dealing with one or another sector, and we are working all together to collect information about the companies or the labs or the different entities we want to assess. So there is only one platform with this information that can be used by all the different actors. So the Regional Council has decided to support financially only this platform so that the other structure or stakeholders have to use this one instead of developing their own database. And what we gain in this win-win situation is that the information is really updated, as all the stakeholders will benefit from this updated information. So we have a specific contract with the different organizations saying that, okay, they can put information in the database, updated it, and now they can use it for their own business on their own website. So this is really the way we are working. And thanks to this collaborative approach and all the data we have in this database, we can promote the data through different ways. So it could be on a website, it could be also on mapping the information. We have also search engine, so we can select the companies that we want to assess or the different competencies that we want to identify all over the region. And we also can use a 3D vision for if we have some specific topics such as building, etc. So this is the way we are working. And at the end of the day, we are also producing dashboard so that the Regional Council can monitor the effects of the policies and reorient some actions if necessary, according to, for instance, what was presented before by Daniel regarding the S3. We are focusing on one sector or another one, and every year we are analyzing the results of this S3 sector and what we are doing and what are the results and what we can do on the coming years. So this is the way we are working. So the principle, if I can sum up this, is that we are working on a collaboration and sharing information amongst the different structure. Of course, we have confidentiality and security for this information, and we have a specific agreement and also some technical aspects that to maintain and to make sure that that are stored in a security way. And we are also working really on the quality, on updating the information, and on the reliability, of course, with the different stakeholders, how they can use the information they put in the database and shared by the other stakeholders. So just some figures about this database. So at the moment, we gather around 45,000 entities all over the database, mainly our companies, and we cover 150 what we call area of interest or sectors. It depends on the way we are using, but we have 150 different sector analyzed and information on this specific area or axis. So who use Craft platform? So the private the sectors or the different organizations, stakeholders at the regional level dealing with economic aspects. also the territory to monitor the information and rearrange or reorient the program or the policy, and also the research actors, including also the universities and also training programs, so that we can have a broad overview of the sector in terms of capabilities and also in terms of competencies all over the value chain. And what is it for? Very briefly, as I said before, we can manage information and manage data. We can identify skills and also the missing one all over the value chain. We can map sectors, monitor the development, have projects, map project, connect also research and manufacturers, make connection at the regional level, but also at the national and European levels. We are dealing with the other actors in France, but also in Europe, thanks to our connections with the European projects. And Daniel mentioned before that he is a member of EURADA. Brittany is also a member of EURADA, and we are working closely with the different members all over Europe. So just to illustrate what we are doing at the regional level in cybersecurity, to have different information from different regions, but all the time using the same value chain, which is really important to have the same information collected from different stakeholders. So this is what I wanted to present, it just to make you understand how we are working. And now I will make a focus on the defense policy in Brittany. So the defense sector is historically embodied in Brittany. So as I said before, we have a maritime area, which is very important. And at the regional level, we have the different forces. We have the Navy one, the field one, air also. I don't know if you saw, it was maybe 2 weeks ago now, the President Macron has presented some actions regarding nuclear, and it was in the frame of submarine base, and this submarine base is in Brittany, at the very eastern part of Brittany. And so this is just to illustrate how the defense sector is present in Brittany. So these are the I would say the old defense sector and defense area, and now we have 2 new ones, the space one and also cybersecurity, which is also a key point for the defense sector, and we have competencies also in this area in Brittany. What we are doing, we were talking previously about dual use and dual sector. This is our way of working, so we are making collaborations between these 2 aspects, and we are focusing on developing technologies that could be used by the military and defense, but also by the private and civil, thanks to specific connections between these 2 aspects. And these connections are made through a specific agreement between the Ministry of Defense or Ministry of Armed Forces at the national level with the Brittany region. So a specific agreement was signed 2 years ago in March 2024. And these are the 5 axes of this collaboration. So on one hand, supporting the regional industry cluster and make them develop, stimulate the dual efficiency, how we can make connections between the different aspects and also have 2 different applications, to consolidate the role as a major player in the defense area, and specifically on the digital aspects, which is one of a key sector or key strength in Brittany. And at the end of the day, also strengthening the ties with the different armed force. There are some headquarters in Brittany, specifically in cybersecurity, based in Rennes. These are national headquarters based in Rennes on the digital aspects. Following this, the signature of this agreement in 2024, 4 main actions has been decided and will be implemented from now to the coming years. So the one is to support the industrial performance system to make industry better and develop competitive aspects or competitive actions, to support also the investment through different funding programs, to also address the skills challenge, which is the topic of today, how we can make sure that skills will be available for the companies in the coming weeks or coming year for developing the defense products, and at the end of the day also to make and to ensure the connections for the industries thanks to the specific platform. For now, regarding the information and the overview about the defense sector and the competencies we have at the regional level, we now have to make the survey. So it is launched, but the results is not ready now. So I cannot present any specific information, but in the coming months, in April, it should be available. And it was important to make this study as the last one was made 10 years ago, so it's a very old one. And when we are using the information from this industry, from this survey, in 2015, we noticed that there, so it's in French only, but the first part in 2015, it was a study detailing the different actors, so in terms of companies, in terms of research centers, also in training, and also in infrastructure that already exists in the defense sector. And when we are just looking at the different entities right now, or it was last year, we noticed that some of them disappeared, new one also appeared. So we decided to update this database and make sure that we have the proper information to decide what to do at the regional level. So just here it's a graph presenting the methodology that we will use for the survey. So on the top you have the information regarding the different entities that will be involved in the survey. So the different clusters and also the different chamber of commerce or pole de competitivity. On the middle, on the blue, you have the different sector or the different axes among the 150 I mentioned before that we will use to identify the competencies. And also we will complete on the top of the green at the right area, we will complete this information with also some information in a newspaper or different sources to complete what we already have. Then we will have this thesaurus and the list of the key competencies that are necessary and that represent the value chain of the defense sector. And then we will make the survey among the different companies and different entities to know where they are on this value chain. And we will promote the results by the end of April, beginning of May. So we will interview companies, but also labs and training stakeholders, and we will ask information regarding the economic aspects, but also regarding the skills and what they need currently, but also what they think to be important or needed in the coming 3 years. So just to make a perspective and have information to and prepare new training program for the company's needs in the coming years. Regarding the funding and also the investment in companies and also stimulating these dual use applications, last year the Regional Council has decided to update the ERDF program, and it is a structural funds for those who don't know this program. It's a European funds managing at the regional level, and the Council of Brittany has has decided to reallocate part of its budget and to dedicate 7 million euros to the dual-use applications and projects for the coming 2 years, which is the end of the program. So the new call for projects will be launched this year on these specific aspects of dual use. And regarding the consolidation of Brittany as a key player in defense area, there is a specific cluster called campus dedicated to cyber security, which is the second one in France after Paris. And it is working on these dual-use applications with a specific committee with companies, but also labs, and make sure that technologies are still available and used by the defense, but also civil applications. So I think this is my last slide. I thank you very much, all of you, for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you very much, Hélène. I'd like to ask you, but also Danielle and Andy, a couple of questions, and please, if you can be concise in your response so that we stay within the time. In particular, you all highlighted the aspect of skills, the investment in skills, the assessment of the skilled needs in relation with the labor market, the importance for the defense sector to develop, to have an effective collaboration among with education, training systems, but also public employment services and all other stakeholders that matter at the regional level. What do you see are the most urgent skill needs that are emerging for the defense-related industries, and how best can national and regional actors coordinate to tackle these? And again, getting back to one of the questions I saw in the chat is it all about STEM? How about other type of soft skills, as well as how about the capacity to retain and attract talent, where in this area in particular, Europe may have had some disadvantages relative, for example, to the US or other economies. Andy, would you like to start?
Yeah, thanks, Lucia. I think I'll try and answer that briefly. So I think what we have seen, what we are seeing, I think sort of in the chat as well, is that certainly STEM skills are really important. I think a lot of engineering disciplines, but a lot of things like computer science and IT, the emergence of AI and how we use that as well as is important, and some of those kind of foundational skills around maths and other things like that. We also see in particular parts of the UK, like where we have kind of manufacturing, the ability to get trained welders, pipe fitters, electrical installation, those types of more kind of, I guess, manufacturing skills are really important. So there is a degree in which you need to look at the kind of defence footprint in a particular location to understand what that skill base requirement is. I think the other thing I would just quickly say is I think there is a challenge for those in the mid-career, those that have been in the sector for 15, 20 years. How do you make sure that they have the relevant skills to continue their career? And I think probably we haven't thought necessarily enough about that kind of mid-career element.
Thank you. Daniel.
Well, thank you for the question. Well, I think that the most urgent skills aren't necessary or aren't strictly military skills. I think that they are transversal high-tech skills. Because as defense becomes highly digitalized, the critical shortage are in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, advanced data analysis, and complex logistics. And I'm talking about Alentejo's perspective, but also I think it's European perspective as well. And we think that the defense industry needs the exact same talent pool as the civil tech sector. And we cannot rely on slow top-down national mandates. I think we need agile, decentralized coordination at the regional level. And this is why regional development agencies and the S3s are crucial, because using a quadruple helix model, we can co-design training programs that fit the exact needs of a local ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Hélène.
Yes, I would say more or less the same thing as IT and cybersecurity, for instance, in our point of view, is very crucial, that it can be used in the different forces for the maritime aspects, for instance. It is one which is important for us on the ports or in infrastructure, also to protect and make sure that also we can qualify the information, so stop the attack, cybersecurity attack, for instance, but also to make sure that information is the right one. So this is also the technologies or the skills that are really of importance for the coming years.
Thank you, Hélène. Maybe I can ask you also the following question and then engage Daniel, Andy. You mentioned earlier that Bretagne has a tradition in this sector, in the defense industry, across different areas, value chain. I think it was mentioned during this webinar that leveraging existing industrial assets is important. Of course, this may require rebuilding competitiveness, repurposing. We know this is also an area where technological development is extremely fast. So what do you think is a key essential in order to ensure that the actual existing industrial assets are best leveraged to build competitiveness in the defense sector? And if you have some also suggestion, what pitfalls, what errors should regional and national policymakers avoid?
I would say that the defense sector is the competence of the national level in France. So, at the regional level, we do not have in one way any specific competency dealing directly with the defense sector. So what we should avoid is competition. So we have to collaborate at the different level, at the regional level and at the national level. And according to our competencies, for instance, in France, economic development is now the competencies of the regional authority. So it is important, of course, in cooperation with the national level, but this is the competency of the regional level. So we have to deal with the national level and to cooperate and see what are needed and how we can work with also the major company. We have Thales, for instance, in Brittany, also Safran, so the big ones. So we have to collaborate with a large group also to see how we can support the development of the technologies. Also, how can I say that, maybe open the doors to use the infrastructure to mutualize also these assets, and not we have to avoid to duplicate the investments, for instance. These are the first idea and first thing I would say.
Thank you, Hélène, and I would like to ask the same to Andy and Daniel. And relatedly also, if you can reflect briefly on what does it mean in terms of sharing the benefits or the potential benefits from this investment and how to generate spillovers. So how to leverage existing industrial assets, but also how to ensure that in this transformation, in fact, spillovers are generated that benefit the local economy.
Should I go first? I suppose so at a national level, there is a degree in which we need to be kind of clear about the kind of capabilities that a country requires. And I suppose working more locally, things like our kind of defence growth deals, they rely in a sense on the natural strengths a particular area has. So ongoing, work in maritime, in coastal areas around kind of maritime disciplines, and in places like Wales around things like unmanned air vehicle testing. So working with those natural strengths is, I think, part of the answer. And I think also, in terms of those spillover benefits, I think how we can generate investment in research and development and in the skills base are the kind of two, I think, main ways in which we are, basically getting those spillovers both into the defence sector but into the broader economy. But Daniel, welcome your thoughts.
Daniel.
Well, in this aspect, I'm going to repeat more or less what I said before, that I think that to leverage these existing industrial assets, the regions must look beyond traditional defense contractors. And as I was commenting on my presentation, in Alentejo, we are currently mapping these traditional SMEs, such as those in the canning, footwear, textile, and metalworking sectors. And because for us, these long-standing industries have immense potential to integrate into dual use and defense supply chains, because there they can be able to provide everything from advanced logistics to specialized uniforms and rations, for example. And the key is to visit them and to understand their baseline and to support also their technological upgrade to meet defense standards. And as for the pitfalls to avoid, I think the biggest mistake policymakers can make is to allocate all these new defense funds exclusively to pure and hard armament companies, creating isolated military islands. But these are also, I said before in my presentation, because I think we must avoid leaving our traditional established companies behind. So the goal should be to upgrade the existing industrial base through dual use capabilities rather than building a parallel economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. With these interesting comments, I think we can go towards the conclusion of the webinar today. Just to say that I think, Daniel, you highlighted it very well. Defense spending is gaining momentum. We know that this will increase. It has already done so. There are, as Andy, for example, illustrated at the national level, very articulated strategies that look at the role of regions. It's, however, important to consider the potential that this momentum has to drive industrial transformation, to create new opportunities for regions at the local level, and therefore also for the currently established players, as well as, of course, the attracting high quality investment and skills. Skills has emerged, I think, very clearly as a key topic when talking about how to turn this defense spending into opportunities. Realizing these benefits requires, it was very clear, investment in skills, but also understanding what are the existing capabilities. Hélène, for example, illustrated this very structured, data-driven approach in Bretagne to map, understand, connect, monitor, and assess, and ensuring that the local businesses, particularly SMEs, entrepreneurs, are connected to this emerging opportunity where skills are obviously an enabling factor for this connection. At the OECD, we are already conducting work in this area. There is an upcoming paper. We will share more information that is examining where defense-related activities are concentrated across regions, but also looking at this aspect of skills that will be increasingly in demand. That's just, I think, the beginning of a conversation that we will continue over the coming periods. And I would like to highlight again that a very important opportunity to do so will be the OECD Global Forum on Local Development taking place in Maastricht, 27 and 28th of May. So please save the date. We look forward to see many of you there to continue this conversation, as well as several others related with local development at a time of high uncertainty, policy uncertainty, issues related with changing global trade, the global environment. So as challenging as it is, but there couldn't be, I think, a more timely moment to really reflect on how these dynamics are impacting at the local and regional level. So to say that the conversation is to continue, I would like anyhow to thank our panelists. Thanks a lot, Daniel, Andy, Hélène, and I look forward to continue with all of you the discussion in Maastricht and beyond. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you.